back yourself. Believe that you can really make a difference. There's nobody in this world who can convince me that I'm not trying to make a difference at least.
That was Sameer Ahmed, aka SameerScane. Sameer is an 18-year-old content creator who aspires to be the voice for those who don't have one. His content is about social issues and hardships in Bangladesh, and he highlights how we can help, or at least try to help solve these problems on an individual level. I first found out about Sameer through one of his videos on Instagram where he was passionately talking about the culture of after-school tuition in Bangladesh. I remember about this insane culture and how it impacted me negatively as a student back then, so it goes to show his choices of topics are quite interesting. While Sameer is not a seasoned creator, he amassed a sizable audience in less than a year of starting out, and that impressed me enough to have him on the podcast. In this topic, we talk about what it's like to be a young creator, trying on different topics on the internet, especially controversial or polarizing ones, what it's like to tackle a growing toxic audience with hate comments, and a fair bit about the world of creating content for social media. Now, if you're a regular listener of the audio version of the podcast, just know that I appreciate you so much. It's incredible that despite my inconsistent releases due to the various lockdowns and whatnot, you've still kept up, so thank you so much. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please do subscribe. It only takes a second for you to do so, but it helps my channel out a lot. And in the meantime, also like the video, because every single like means more people will get to watch my video, so that helps me out as well. I'm trying to reach that 1,000 subscriber mark very, very soon, so every single subscriber helps. Thanks again for sticking around. And also, sign up to my creative newsletter at www.tausifakas.com. I occasionally send a creative piece about my thoughts and what happens around the internet, really, so I think it's a good place for you to find what's happening around the areas of creativity and culture on the internet. Alright, without further ado, here is The State of the Creators Season 2, Episode 6, featuring Sameer Ahmed, aka Skane. Hope you enjoy the show. This is The State of the Creators, a show about creative individuals who are on a quest to build something out of nothing. Talking about doing this for, I don't know, God knows how long. Finally got around to doing it. So thanks for coming in. But before anything else, what is Skane?
That's the real question. So Skane is sugarcane.
Okay. Why?
We're still in the process of marketing that, but so Skane comes from like way back. We go way back. So when I was about 7 or 6, I think I set up my first social media account. Twitter was the shit back then. Can I swear?
Yeah, you can swear. Go ahead.
So Twitter was the thing back then, and I needed an email account. And talking to like sending your mail, Sameer Ahmed was gone. So I was like, okay. And then I gave it to my brother, and he used to make fun of me. I used to be very, very fat. Like throughout my life, I was fat till like 2-3 years ago. And he thought, okay, because I think Skane popped up as a suggested thing, and he was like, oh, that also means sugarcane, and I call you sugarcane. I said, okay, yeah, sure. And then that became a thing, and then you know how we like carry gamer tags and things like that. So that became my thing, and that's where I made it my Insta handle and so and so. Then when we started, this is the funniest thing. We thought we'd go for Sameer the Paneer.
Right.
And would Sameer the Paneer really sell? We were thinking about it, and then.
So this is when you started the whole.
Yes.
Your own kind of journey with the media stuff that you're doing now.
Yeah.
And you wanted to go. Initially thought Sameer the Paneer. Okay.
That was a big thing, and we took inspiration from Big D Bangla.
Right.
Because that worked out really well for him. Like we all remember him because of like his name is just so catchy.
Yeah.
And then Dapper, we had this serious conversation. Would Sameer the Paneer talking about these serious issues really sell? Mm-hmm. Like maybe the name would catch on and maybe we'd go big and things like that. But would people take us seriously? And Talking was like, oh, SameerScane is still there. And then my team back then, they were like, oh no, I think we should really go for SameerScane.
Right.
And like, look, we stuck to it. We still haven't marketed yet. We have to find a significant meaning behind it. But yeah, we're in the process of that.
Oh, it's, like a lot of the big names, like KSI, for example. KSI's name is like 3 different things that he used to do back then. I think it was his gamer tag, his internet company at the time, and something else mixed up together and turned into KSI.
Akoni calls it knowledge, strength, integrity. No way he actually thought of it at the start.
No. He changed it for sure. But going back to your storyline, so tell me a little bit about yourself. For those who don't know who Sameer is, who is Sameer and what's SameerScane?
Right. So I'm Sameer. I'm Sameer Ahmed. On the internet, I'm known as SameerScane. I'm an 18-year-old Bangladeshi Australian. I've been in Australia for the last 5 years. I was born in Dhaka. I went to Dubai for like 3 years, but I basically grew up in Dhaka. So I'm a Dhakaya. I'm not someone who's, like brought up elsewhere. Like, yeah, I'm sure I've spent some time here, but I'm essentially a Dhakaya. I spent 10 years there from the age of about 4 to the age of 14. So that's my home. Like, I'm never confused about where home is. Some people move abroad and they lose their identity. They forget, they start questioning, where is my home really? And that's fair. But for me, I've never struggled with that. I know where home is. I know who my people are and the people I care about the most in a way. So essentially, that's always been my thing. And so I've been in Perth. I've done my high school and so on and so. But yeah, no, it's going well.
So with your, so I actually didn't know that you only moved here 5 years ago. I thought you're pretty much born and bred Perth, and have this connection. So, so when you say you're a Dhakaya, so there's two distinctions. So Dhakaya is not just the people born there. I think Dhakaya specifically is a certain. How do you say it in English? Because you've got like Chadga. Yeah, exactly. So you've got Chadgayas and Dhakayas, but you're a Dhakaite, I guess. Like in terms of. Like your grammar body is not Dhaka, right?
Abu was actually raised in Puran Dhaka, so that's pretty cool.
Okay, so then
but he's still from Komila.
Okay, right. So you're kind of Dhakaya, but not Dhakaya.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So after moving here, you still feel the urge to do stuff for Bangladesh and Dhaka specifically. Ever since moving here, though, were you doing this stuff before, or was it always do you start doing it after you moved here, or was it always something you were doing while you were in Dhaka?
No. So I started way after. So if I had to sum up my last 3 years, or at least my first 3 years in Perth, it would be that I came here. I was filled with uncertainty, or what is Perth life going to be like? Because I was really happy to leave Dhaka because it's like a fresh start. Australia, how we think of the American dream.
Yeah.
So 14-year-old me thought, the Australian dream, how cool would that be? But to put it short, when I entered Australia, I was this 14-year-old kid who weighed 88 kilos. So I was morbidly obese.
Well done. I wouldn't have known.
So I had this speech disorder, which is, you can barely see it now, but it used to be such a big problem back then. I was Bangladeshi. I didn't have the best local accent, I guess. I was a Muslim. I'm brown. So things like that, everything combined, I was the easiest target for bullying. I got bullied a fair bit at the start. Although it was such a nice and multicultural school, I got bullied a fair bit. And honestly,
multicultural schools?
Yeah, here in Perth. Yeah, so honestly, I don't regret any of that. It taught me so much. Honestly, it makes me who I am. And that 2 years basically shaped me for the future. It made me a better person. I learned so much from it. I know the kind of person I want to be. So I have no regrets over that. And after the first 2 years, I met some amazing people who are still my friends today. They've pushed me to become better and better and better. And if I had to start, cut short, so...
That's fine.
2020, started 2020, or
also just basically last year during quarantine, during the whole... Right. So from that perspective, you've gotten really good kind of... I would say reception overall, and why do you think that's the case for you?
Yeah, I'm so grateful for the support and the reception, like you said. I think the case for us is that because it's so unique, it's almost a bit pioneering, in that sense. It's a fusion of a bit of Nas Daily, Hassan Minhaj, Trevor Noah, and so. But it's catered to the Bangladeshi audience, and I don't think they've seen anything like it before. Okay. I don't think there's anyone I see online who does exactly what we do or anything even similar. And I think that's what sells our product the most, in that sense.
What prompted you to get into social media to start with? So essentially, obviously, if not social media in general, but to do this thing specifically, right? So, you as you mentioned with the story, you're in Bangladesh, you moved here. 5 years now? What prompted you on the 4th, 5th year to do something like this?
Perfect. So for the last 4 or 5 years, thankfully from my dad's contract with his company, his company essentially pays for us to go back to Dhaka twice or thrice a year. So we've always been very connected to home. Like I spent 3 months out of 12 months in Dhaka, but that was prior to COVID, obviously.
Right.
So what happened was, as I turned 16-ish, I've always been very ambitious. Like I'm not for the typical person going back to Dhaka, like, just spend some time with family and friends, so-and-so, or eat at fancy restaurants, go to resorts, attend the cousin's wedding, and so-and-so. I wanted a lot more than that because I know that that's not what the real Dhaka looks like. That's not what 99.9% of people experience. And I'm an ambitious person. I like seeing what the real thing is. Like, I want to see the real deal. And as I became 16, I knew that, parents saying, oh, it's not safe for you to go outside, or like, you're too young for this, that would have to stop. I consider my uncle very, very close to me. So he's always been very supportive of me, and he's just like my best friend, honestly. And I spoke to him. He's like, okay, like I really want to go out, and my parents would trust me with you. Can you start showing me the realer side of Dhaka? And he said, yes, for sure. And that was so cool because my parents couldn't say no to that.
Right.
And we started traveling. So from the age of 16 to 18, every single time I went back to Dhaka, it was no longer that superficial Dhaka, that privileged bubble of just like, wealth. And now it was the real deal. And we went to the local train stations, the slums, and just, I don't know, like Puran Dhaka, and so I think a very good contrast I could draw is, say, if I go to Puran Dhaka with my dad, it would be in an AC car where music is blaring, it's at night, and say we're going to eat, like food is brought to the car. That's not the real Puran Dhaka. And I know that he knows that, but that's just his life. It doesn't have to be my life, especially at this age. So what happened for me was I told my uncle that we should experience the real thing. He's like, oh, let's go Friday lunch and let's walk. So we went Friday lunch and we walked it. It was the most beautiful thing ever. Like honestly, and we started doing that very frequently, and I started experiencing the real Dhaka. And what I think is, like, this is my analogy at least, once you start spending time with these people, just like family, you start loving them. And when you love someone and you see their problems, their problem becomes your problem. So like a family, like if any of your family member has a problem, that becomes your problem. Likewise, you spend some time with these people and their problem becomes your problem and you feel responsible for it.
So why choosing specifically video formats to do something like this, essentially?
Video format, right. So start of 2020, there was a bunch of experiences. I could go into detail about them, but it really hurt me. Like I wished I couldn't sleep at night saying, I wish I could do more. And back then I was 17, I was like, okay, so I'm 17, I don't have any money of my own, I don't have anything, I'm going back to Perth, I really want to do something. I see these people, I care so much about them, I'm in this position, why can't I do anything for them? I wished, because I saw that, but yeah, it was just awful, and I wished I could do something. And I saw my friends, they run charities and stuff, amazing. So there are so many youth-led initiatives in Dhaka right now, it's inspiring. But I knew, like, at the back of my mind, that doesn't serve the purpose as much. Like, I wanted to do, it had to be something which actually made a difference. Because you can donate and feed 50 people, sure, but if the donor didn't donate to that place, they'll probably donate to some other place. And it's not really making, like, it's not about money anymore. So say, for example, from my trip to the slums, right, I realized that also we think that slums, they would not have food, they would not have clean drinking water. It's not that. Like, we get them wrong. It's like the disconnect between the privileged and the people who are not so privileged. I went and found out that the biggest problem they have, rats. I looked into their house. It was awful. They have holes everywhere. And they said that they try and cover it up, but they can't. Like, Justin another one would be there. They have babies. They have kids who are sick. Who is taking care of them? These are rats. They have food. They have water. They can do that. But they can't get rid of these rats. And that's like a perfect example to say that, we don't know what they really need. Like, somebody has to talk about these things. Somebody has to, get people to understand the difference and so and so. And what got me thinking was, okay, so I started writing notes. So once I came back to Perth, I was like, I don't have any of the money. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything with my dad's help either. I want to be my own person and do something on my own. So I started making these notes. And the biggest thing which struck out to me was, I want to make a difference amongst the mass. And that's a big thing. So basically, I looked back at my own notes at end of April, and I was like, okay, so mass, so and so, and make a big difference.
That's for video. So
Yes, video format. So video can get 10 views, it can get 100 views, or it can get 100,000 views. And that stuck to me. I was like, okay, this has potential. I might become a meme, but it's worth it. Let's see what happens.
with it's interesting that you bring your father into the conversation. Like I didn't know, the details until recently, but every now and then. So obviously recently you've been getting a bit more, I guess, press or public eyes than usual, right? And now, something that I do regularly is just read comments, observe, and look at shares and stuff like that. And there was a few comments with I think it was Cablegram who had you one of the 7 content creators. And under your post, there's some people just commenting, like, who's this guy? And then someone said, oh, this is that guy's son, right? And I guess that's going to start becoming more and more prominent in the sense that, that's going to get tied to your identity. How do you plan to battle that? Because as you mentioned, you seem quite adamant that you want to be your own person, but when you've got someone like a popular figure in your family, whether it's your dad or your brother or whoever, that always gets tied in to what you're trying to do. And I guess the worst part of that is even if you do something good, people will say that it's because his his dad's dad or his brother's dad or his uncle owns $1 billion or whatever. How does that play into your work, if at all? Like, does it just bother you? And if so, how do you plan to tackle that?
Like, it sucks. My dad has nothing to do with my content. Nothing. I pay for everything on my own, from equipment, so and so. Like, I work on my own. I don't use his money. And like, not that I can't use his money, but like, I don't use it. I don't take direct help from him. He does his own thing. He's a corporate figure. I'm a social media figure. It's very, very different. I don't see why. It's not like I paid Cablegram. Bro, no. It's so sad, like, honestly. But at the end of the day, I'm becoming more and more used to it, which is actually a bit sad in a way. Hopping onto the internet is not easy. Like, putting yourself out there, like, at this age, it's very difficult. Honestly, me, like, doing this for the past year, I've become desensitized and dehumanized, like in that sense. Like,
that actually brings me to one of the things I want to ask you is the hate that you would get, because it's also platform specific. From what do you know, from what I guess a lot of listeners know as well, that not every platform works the same way. In your case, you mentioned that your Facebook is one of the drivers, and that's where you wanted to target as well, because that's where most Bangladeshi people, at least the mass, would be consuming the video content, at least the ones that you want to change the mindset of, right? And you've done that a fair bit, but you've also received a lot of backlash, simply for the topics that you use. Nothing to do with you, nothing to do with the video quality or whatever, but a lot of the time simply because either you're too young to talk about these things, or the topics that you choose. In fact, for every podcast that I have, the guest, I have like an overarching theme, right? For you, I was thinking, what's unique about you is how you're so young and you're putting yourself out there into these very sensitive topics, and then having to deal with the reception. Obviously, you get the positive ones, but I'm focusing on the negative ones in this segment. So, first of all, what kind of comments do you get? Second of all, why do you think that's the case for so many of Bangladeshis on Facebook or wherever? And 3, you mentioned that you're desensitized, but how does that impact you? Because you're only 18, right?
Yeah.
Me going back to 18 and at least a decade back, right? Even though I grew up with the internet, it wasn't as this radical in terms of being quote unquote public figure and getting hate. So 3-part question, I guess.
Lovely. So personally, over the past year, I've seen like a very, very big difference. Instagram and Facebook are not the same thing, like in that sense. Instagram, I can probably count like a handful of hate comments. I can't think of more than that. Instagram is educated people, I'd say, like in terms of Bangladesh at least. You'd see a lot of friends and family, so people our age, people who are supporting you, encouraging you, so and so. Personally, I mean, like, they would probably say horrible things, but that would be behind your back. No one would openly go out and say something bad straight to your face or like comment that, I guess. But to me, and like people think, oh, like I'll just stick to Instagram then. That doesn't cut it for me. That's not making a difference. If you're gonna have a bunch of people agree with you, people probably know these things already.
That's literally what Instagram, and I have so much to say about that. But anyway,
if it's like, say for example, I'm educating people on menstruation, for example, they already know that. They know those things. There's like,
and
sure,
basically just patting yourself on the back, like, yep, I'm talking about it, where people already are open to this topic, and everyone just gives you a round of applause for talking about it. So
exactly. So it doesn't do my job. My job has to be on Facebook, and whether I get backlash or not, it's something I have to keep on pushing. And if I don't, for example, so Insta we've never non-organically promoted. Facebook we have, because I'm willing to put my own money, because my job here is to convince these people, is to influence these people. And if I get to my friends and family, it doesn't do that because they know this stuff already. Bangladesh, Facebook, you have the masses, people from all classes, people from all educational backgrounds, and you want to convince them. Your job is to convince them in those few minutes, hopefully change some of them for the better. And that's what we go for. And that's why, like, people shy away from Facebook. You shouldn't shy away from Facebook. If you really want to make a difference, it has to be Facebook. And I've personally prioritized Facebook the most over YouTube, over Insta. It's always been my thing.
Yeah, so why do you think the people comment the way they do on Facebook? At least for the topics that you choose.
This is something I've thought about a lot.
You made a video about it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's so sad and upsetting. And it's not just me. Everybody knows that every single creator, celebrity, influencer in Dhaka, if you looked at the Cablegram post, I got my main react was the heart reacts. Like, that was nice. Like, I would take that. If you looked at the two women who were on there, haha reacts, they deserved it. I watched both of them. They make amazing content. Haha reacts, why? That's the internal misogyny, I'd say. And then even with like the top creators as well, like the comments were bad. Like, why do you have to do that? It happens to every single creator. Like, I feel like it's our judgmental Desi culture which kind of translates to the toxic internet culture online. And it's just, like I said, upsetting. I've thought about it so much. It's kind of like the hate us because they ain't us mentality, because people work really hard back there, and then they see like some people, they make videos and they're up there. That's unfair. And I felt that a lot with so many of the things I do. Like, some people, they pretend like I don't exist, or they've never commended me for like, what I do. And it's not that, it's just that I could see that this jealousy, or they wish they could do it in an easier way, but it doesn't work like that. It's like, there's a lot of smart work into this, and this is the creative field. Like, creative people can do a lot more in a short amount of time compared to like, working hard your entire life and getting there. So,
and how do you deal with those comments? Because that, again, like, how does it shape does it impact your content that you want to create? Like how do you go about that?
So you have to kind of differentiate between constructive criticism and hate comments. And I've always looked into that. Honestly, like, even some of the hate comments, they might have some essence out of it, I guess. So if, say, for example, they're making fun of my Bangla, that's not right, but maybe I can improve my Bangla. And I've put so much effort into that. I even downloaded the Bangla keyboard to, like, get more familiar with so and so. But how do I deal with that? Over the past year, so I feel like the first batch of hate comments I really got was the first rape capital video, so where I discussed, like, how we should deal with rape and how we're looking at it wrong, especially in terms of the mass. And people were very upset, and they Facebook, like, they went off, and that was a lot to deal with. I remember I had my exams going, I couldn't sleep at night because I was like, these people, I don't know them. All I'm trying to do is help, and they're out there saying such horrible things, and those comments are getting, like, support. It was very upsetting. It was tragic. But like I said, I'm lucky that I do activism, because, like, in that sense, I'd say 95% of the people support me. And it's like, if you don't, like, even if you don't like me, if you don't support the project, I feel like, you're probably not a very good person, because all I'm trying to do is help. And yeah, now at this point, I'm more desensitized and dehumanized to it. Like, it just doesn't hit me. I guess that's a good thing, but it's also very upsetting that, like, like, that's what it does to a person.
Being young, though, it can be a bit daunting. And I mean, you've mentioned that, but being young, being taken seriously is also a struggle, right? Especially with topics like this.
Yeah.
So how is that, perception carried on for not just your wider audience, but also, like, when you explain this at home, like, like, I want to do this, I want to talk about menstruation, like a 17-year-old boy talking about rape, things like that. These aren't things that generally are quite taboo. They are quite taboo to talk about, even in broader circumstances. So being young and talking about stuff like this, how does that play into your wide audience and your family and yeah, I guess do you ever get not taken seriously?
So maturity and self-awareness is increasingly important, like, in that regard. I do get put off sometimes, like, whether it be family members saying, oh, like, stick to talking about Fair and Lovely, don't talk about politics. That's not your thing, that's way out of your league. Probably is, like, to a certain extent, like, I get them, because to talk about certain things, it takes a lot of maturity and, like, knowledge and experience to, like, know what you're talking about. Like, news reporters do that after years of experience. That's when they're put on camera, and that they get that amount of views. Then I'm doing that, and I'm getting a similar amount of views. It means I have a lot of responsibility, and they worry for me, like, in that sense. So if we're going to talk about, we made a video on the Digital Security Act. That was probably the most draconian law in the history of Bangladesh. It was tragic. So people reached out to me saying that this is happening. Nobody's ever going to make a video on this. Are you willing to do that? And then one of the journalists who was imprisoned, his niece hit me up and said that, like, this is what's happening. Nobody has talked about it. I've hit so many people up. Would you do it? And then we set out on, like, this 1.5 month plan. Like, we're going to put this video out. So that's when the roof on top of my house just went off. My mom, she didn't talk to me for a week. My family were really pissed off at me. I got blocked by family members. All of my friends said that, like, I think you're done after this. And I was like, I think it's fine. Like, somebody has to step up and do it. Of course, it's very risky, and that's where I said, like, maturity plays in. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, but I don't regret what I did. And I think a very good example you gave was menstruation. Say menstruation, sex workers, so and so. Like, we've made featured posts on them. So we don't just make videos, we make illustrations, featured posts as well. So we essentially infographics. I feel like that's where those are more appropriate for that, because now if I go onto video talking about menstruation, the Bangladeshi internet society is not ready for that. And that's something I have to tell myself as well. Maybe they should be ready for it, but they're not ready for it. Whether, say, I can talk about the LGBTQI community, sure, I can do it, but they're not ready for that. And that's something I have to tell myself. I really want to, but they're not. They haven't hit that step yet. It's going to be a step-by-step process. That will take 10 years. There's no point trying to rush it. Then I'm just going to appease my Instagram people, but it's not going to, like, people aren't ready to see that. And it's very important to be self-aware and know your limits. So I feel like we've been working on that a fair bit.
Right. Do you ever feel the fight that you're fighting is not worth fighting for?
Oof. Yeah, that's important. Personally, this entire project has given me so much purpose and meaning in life. I always look for something bigger than just you and I, like, bigger than the things we do. Like, I was looking for that extra something. So, yeah, that can, like, because I give up so much for this. I sacrifice everything, honestly, like my time, even to a certain extent, like my grades as well. I know if I wasn't doing this, I could have done a lot better at school near the end of it. Even now, like, at uni, I know that if I wasn't doing this, I could have done that. Or because I don't make any money from this, if I didn't do this, I could have worked more and I could have made a lot more money. But I don't care about those things, honestly, because I find so much purpose in this. I feel like this is more important than anything I've ever done in my life. I get meaning from this. Have I ever considered stopping? No. Like, I want to do this for as long as I can. It means so much to me. I think it's extremely important. And, like, again, like I'm saying 1 year because we're so close to making it to a year since we've been doing this. And, yeah, like 1 year of doing this, I like to think that we've made a difference. And we have the potential to go to, like, the next level and make more of a difference. It's exponential growth from here. And if we stay, if you, like, stick to being creative, stick to being, like, ambitious, we can really make a difference. And, like, I like thinking that way.
With, for someone who grew up on social media all their lives, I'm talking about you, do you think social media is a force of good, or has it been a force of good for you?
Social media is a force of good. I feel like people doubt it so much. I think there was a Netflix documentary on it, The Social Dilemma.
Yeah, last year.
It painted social media in such a...
I hated the documentary.
Like, that was stuck in my head, and I was talking to my dad about it. I was like, okay, is it really that bad? Is it really? Like, I even had an online relationship, and that was such a special thing that would have never happened back then. Like, people went off to war, and like that was it, like letters and so on and so on. I'm so connected to Bangladesh.
Yeah.
That would have never happened 20, 30 years ago. I can still call my grandma.
I think what happens is, for all the positive that we've gotten, we've taken that for granted, and for all the negatives that's happened as well, we put it under a microscope. Really, I think that's why, like, for me, like, I'm a big fan of social media, but I do see the negatives of it as well. Like, the negatives can be really, really negative, but the positives as well is immense. And I think, it probably deserves a separate episode on its own. But for you personally, with social media, do you think you would have been able to do what you're doing without it?
No, I don't think so. Social media, you get to kind of control what you put out. You get to manipulate. You get to create a character. To a large extent, SameerScane is this character I've built. It's like this persona, and you get to choose what you put out and what you don't, and what you don't put out. Personally, I think I'm a crippling teenager with issues, right? And when I see that SameerScane character, like, he seems like he's got like some great things going on for him. I don't, like, it is me, but it's not me, and I don't like, it's hard to believe that, like, that character exists in me, kind of thing. But yeah, our social media has done a great deal of good. Like, it's crazy to think that, we actually pulled this off. Like, I thought that I'd become a meme. Like, honestly, living in Australia. Living in Australia, I thought, like, talking about issues back there, like, in a developing country, like, even from my friends.
I think that's the way to go as well, because you kind of thought of the worst that could happen to you, like, I'll become a meme. And the thing is, in some ways, becoming a meme means that you've kind of made it, like, you've kind of gone mass.
Yeah.
Because for example, from what I've seen, is that I think that the threshold of creators, at least in Bangladesh, is I want to say it on the podcast, but once you start getting too popular, like, you're too popular when you get religious comments on your YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And irrelevant religious comments, like nothing to do with the topic or the person, but things like, if you pray 5 times a day, that's where heaven is, or something like that, in a very, like, nice little sermons. So once you start seeing those popping up on YouTube, that's the threshold. That means you've reached beyond the regular mass. So I think there's definitely growth for you, but you've thought of the worst, in the sense that, okay, I'll become a meme at some point, so nothing can really
meme as in more like, people will think of you as a joke. And honestly, look, if I got 10 views instead of 100,000 views, or people would have said, this guy's, like, he's a bit sad, like, he's doing this, so and so.
The thing is, it's but like what you've gotten, I think, is an exception, in the sense that, getting so much traction is not necessarily the norm, right?
Sure.
So I think with even if you got 10 views, given how passionate you are about what you do, it shouldn't really matter, in the sense that I'm still doing it for a wider cause.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, it should have, like, some sort of like I said, purpose to what you're doing, and you've got that. So I don't think that would have mattered for you.
I don't like talking about views much, because it's just weird. Like, you don't say views and stuff like that.
Again, that's again, I think that it deserves a whole separate conversation. But numbers, like people judge others based on a certain characteristic, right? Like, prior to prior to social media, again, if somebody made a video, or as in like a movie, right, or a documentary, or made a song, how would you judge them? Either because everything was centralized, like, okay, if they're in the top 100 billboards, or if they won an Oscar, or so everything was centralized, right? Once that's gone, because there's no centralized internet way of judging things, the only thing that comes to our, at the front of our face are these numbers. And I think that's why we go straight into that. Okay, he's gotten 10 million views, so therefore more people are watching him, so therefore he must be a big deal.
Yeah.
So I don't entirely blame, this way of thinking, but at the same time, it does, cause the issue that you're talking about. So
I think there's a lot of factors that play in. Like, for me, I want the masses. So my only KPI for that, to a large extent, is views. But say, as for like a podcast, and like my friends run podcasts like this as well, and they're like, how come you get so many views? I want them. You don't need that many views. Like, you're catering to a niche. For me, it's very different. I'm catering to the masses. So the more views I get,
if anything, you're getting less views compared to what you're aiming for.
Exactly.
It's nothing. It's a fraction of the mass that you aim to get. So it really is relative. But in a way, we have kind of modeled it around judging views as the quality of content. But anyway, that's, again, like I said, that's a different conversation altogether. Cancel culture. I've seen you make a post about that recently. I have my own thoughts about cancel culture, but again, as someone who's who's kind of grew up on the internet, still on the internet day in, day out, how do you view it? I know you've made a post about it, but personally, how do you view cancel culture? And I just want to know.
My fundamental view towards cancel culture is that it's not black or white. I feel like that's what happens. Like when you cancel someone, like you end their career. That's harsh. That's really harsh, because I know that people put blood, sweat, and tears into this stuff, and just because of one incident, of which you might not be directly related to as well. Like if you saw the David Dobrik thing, he was a part of it, but he didn't directly do it. People ended his career almost. He lost sponsors, big sponsors. That's his life. This is his
back
livelihood.
though, this week.
He's back. Yes, he's back. But that was there, and that's so it's scary. Like as a creator, that it could end just like that for something you were maybe even partly involved in. Like that's really harsh. But in terms of the good side of things, it's like you can do something really messed up 2 years ago, and if justice wasn't served, the internet might do you some justice. And that's very inspiring to me, honestly, because there's been a lot of shady things which have happened in terms of Bangladeshi context. I'm really happy that the internet spoke up about it. For example, I was scammed recently by this magazine. They took money from me. They said that they were a youth thing, and we'll be featuring content creators on the rise and social welfare things. And I said, okay, so and they're a youth thing, and I'm all for the youth, so I'd be willing to they said you'd have to get a number of copies. Yeah, sure, why not? And sure enough, once they put it out, I found out that they weren't taking money from models and so on. So, and I was like, whoa. And I know that some of my friends who also run welfare things, they have 40, 50 members each. They bought 40, 50 copies.
Oh, wow.
I had to buy 10 copies. I didn't mind. I thought it was a normal thing because they needed the funds, and I'm all for the youth. But models and stuff were getting it for free while they were scamming us for money. It was so wrong. And I went out and I posted about it. Got 800 shares, and okay. So honestly, his brands are in trouble because of that. So people know. His crowd would have known, and he deserved it. He sent me 30 messages that night, and I saw them. He doesn't really care. He just worried about his brands. But did he deserve it? 100%. He's scamming welfare organizations. We don't have a lot of funds. I thought we thought we were getting good PR sounds, and we were honored to be featured on there. But then to find out that half the people didn't pay, and they're the ones who actually make money, who run businesses, it was hurtful, and we got back at them.
Right.
Satisfying.
And on social media, though, for creators. How do you think that they'll be able to, tackle cancel culture? Say if you get canceled straight away or something like that, do you think creators should just take a step back and not so for example, the guy you're talking about, does it deserve to get back onto the and that's where cancel culture gets me is say justice system, right? Okay, so we've got a justice system in place. A typical justice system would have a fair way of judging someone's crime, and they're going to be judged by people who are experienced about it. Depending on the law of the land, they're going to get 3 years in jail or a fine or whatever. They do their deed, they're back into the society, right? With cancel culture, though, it's almost the internet culture is a society of its own. Somebody does a mistake, they're cancelled, which is the punishment, the penalty that they pay.
Yeah.
But then what happens after? So what if this guy kind of comes back on and say, hey, I want to start a magazine, but this time I'm not going to take money from anyone, kind of thing. How would you view it in that case?
Social media is a platform where you can post whatever you want, whenever you want. And especially at this time, everything is scrutinized. Like I said, you're putting yourself onto the internet. That's a weight on your shoulders. You have to realize that what's the opposing view to every single thing I post. Whether, say, for example, I look back at something I said. I think I put, sexy was in the same sentence as rape. And I was like, oh my God, how did I do that? I deleted it straight away. Yeah. Although, it wasn't in that context at all. It's just that you have to be extremely aware extremely aware, and you get to choose what you put out. It's not like you're being forced to put out anything. Just be extremely aware. In terms of getting back from cancel culture, I feel like Logan Paul is the perfect, like he's an exemplar for that. He was cancelled. I don't think anyone's been cancelled as bad as him. Look at him now. He fought with Floyd Mayweather. He made 10, 20 million from that fight. Like, that's what you'd expect from, like, it's basically like a character arc, but online. So you're put down. Do you really have what it takes to get back up? Some people do, some people
The
don't.
question is, do they deserve to get back on? I think that was my question. So, for example, again, going back to the guy that you mentioned, will you personally, who's been scammed, be okay with him getting back on?
Personally, I have very strong feelings towards him. I really hope he doesn't come back on, because like, you can judge character as well. Personally, I think I'm a good judge of character. I don't want to see him back on. But in terms of Logan Paul, like, that's a very big discussion I have with my friends. Some people despise him. I personally have forgiven him. Maybe what he does, like, it might be fake, so-and-so, but I believe him. And I believe that he's changed for the better. And I'm willing to forgive him and give him a second chance at this. And he's doing amazing, and I'm really happy for him.
So when you watch content like these, like what makes a good piece of content? Like, what is quality content to you?
Ooh, quality content. I feel like conciseness is very important, especially in our day and age. Not a lot of people have 50 minutes of viewing time or like 10 minutes of viewing time for a video. And this is something which we've bogged down a lot. Like, can we present, like, we can, like, our research for each video goes for 20, 30 minutes-ish. Like, we can't go on for that long. But our skill is to keep it concise. Can we turn that into 2 to 3 minutes? Like, getting the very best bits, still having the punchline, still sending the same message. That is very important. Like, we have very short attention spans. That's why TikTok is big. Like, so it's very important that you get that. Like I'm saying, like, awareness and understanding your viewers. Your viewers don't have that much time. So can you send that same message in 2 minutes? Like, that's the skill, and that's something I care about the most. Quality.
When you view something, though, what's quality there for you there?
Ooh.
Because not everything that you watch or listen to or do anything is 2 to 3 minutes, for example.
Engaging content, something you think about later on. It's not just something, like, it's nice to watch entertaining content, but think about the impact it has. Are you happier after? Perfect. If it's like engaging content, you should be thinking about it after. So having that impact, it shouldn't be something which you watch and you forget, or something which has no impact on you. That's something, like, viewers should keep in mind, I guess.
With the videos that you do, what's the one thing that really drives you, like, out of, like, what's one thing that you get out of it that makes you keep going?
So definitely, like, the purpose behind it. Am I in the process of influencing the mass? I like to think so, and that tells me, okay, so why should I stop? Like, honestly, like, nothing means as much to me as this does. Like, I make money on the side to do so, and so, like, that doesn't mean anything to me. It's always like this purpose. I don't make any money from this, and I put in a lot of time. I put in everything for this, like blood, sweat, and tears. So it's the fact that, okay, so it's reaching out to people. It's doing the purpose I dreamt it would. And it makes me so happy. It keeps me driven. It keeps me ambitious. I only want to do better and better. So, yeah, definitely that.
Do you have supportive parents?
Interesting. I would say so, for sure. They've always been very supportive since day one. But I've always tried to stay independent to a certain extent. Like, say, for example, financially speaking, I buy all the equipment myself. Like, I would save up my money that would buy it. So, like, in that sense, yes. They've always been very supportive in terms of the topics, I guess, sharing the videos, so-and-so, like, discussing and, like, not saying, oh, you should stop your studies and, like, like, you should stop this and focus on your studies. They're not that type. So that's really nice. They respect my creativity. They respect my thinking, which is really nice as well. But, again, say, for example, are they supportive in terms of certain topics? Again, Digital Security Act, they weren't supportive of that. But, again, they have that respect where if I said I would keep it on, I could keep it on. And that's a big thing. Like, some people, like, they would kick you out of the house in terms of brown. But nah, it was all good, and I got to keep it on.
In terms of identity, then, like, you mentioned that you're quite fixated on that fact that, Bangladesh is home and everything like that. Having moved here, has that ever been questioned by yourself?
Yeah. I'm an Australian citizen now as well, so definitely Australia's my home as well. It's like my second home, and I respect that. These people are also my people. But in terms of, like, people who need to be not helped isn't the right word, but people you want to do more for, it's Bangladesh for me. It's something I feel like, I love those people. Like when I go there and I see that they're not happy, I wish I could do more. In terms of Australia, they're happy enough. Like Australia's standard of living, well-being, so on. So like they're doing well. So they don't, like, I don't need to do a lot of good for them, but Bangladesh definitely needs people to stand up for them and do more for them. That's what I feel, and I'm kind of driving towards that.
And what's your KPI though when you want to help and help the mass? Because obviously video views and stuff like that can only do so much. Beyond that, how do you judge that? Okay, like I am like at what point in the future would you be like, you know what, I think I've done my job? Like, what would give you that thought? Because you're striving for something.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think you can. I really hope I never go to a point where I'm saying, oh, okay, so I've done my job. Like that's it. I really should never set up shop and stop. There's a lot of things which we can judge our content on, like you said, viewer count, masses, shares, masses. But something I always like question myself, because people said, like some people who weren't so happy, or like people who scrutinize, I guess, which is fair, said, are you really making a difference? I was like, okay, am I? So we should collaborate with the charity and show that, we have a reach. And that's exactly what we did. So we went and collaborated with Footsteps, which is an amazing charity that like Diana Award-winning winners, and like they raise funds to build these water pumps, I guess, to filter out clean drinking water for underprivileged kids across Bangladesh. And we spoke to them and we had a few meetings with them. They're like, okay, we can do this. You guys have a big reach. Like, trust me, you guys can raise a lot more money than we can in months even. I was like, dope. I think like I would back myself. And essentially that video, we were very limited in terms of creativity, but it was 100% based on making or like raising money for them. And we raised about 1 lakh taka, which is, I'm not sure how many dollars, but that was
1 lakh, probably like two grand.
Yeah, in a week.
Wow, that's very good.
In a week, just because of a video. So that was like, okay, so our thing is legitimate. Like there are people who watch our videos. There are people who are willing to donate because of that one video. Charities take, like, this is not shade to charities, but they would take a while to raise that amount of money and a lot of effort. For us, it took effort, but think about the time. 1 week, just one video can convince people to do, good. And that tells me that, our thing is legitimate. So that was something I looked for and I got it. And we'll definitely be collaborating with more charities in the future.
Going back into specifically to your content-based stuff, how do you plan a piece of content? Like talk to me about the ideation all the way to hitting publish. Like, how does it work? You mentioned you've got team members. How do you collaborate with them? What goes into the entire process?
Very important. We have got a team. This is not a one-man army thing. I love my team. We have a team of 22 people right now.
Wow.
So I think the youngest person is 16, the oldest is 21. So we range from all around the world. We're all Bangladeshis, but there are some people living in Costa Rica. There's some people living in the U.S., Canada, so on. So I feel like I try not to be too restrictive. Like, I try and keep a very creative process going, because if we bounce off ideas, so I put a lot of effort into building a good community so that they're very comfortable and they feel open and welcome to sharing ideas and so on. So in terms of coming up with a video idea, I kind of have a big say in it personally, because I think of, okay, so what can I deliver really well? And again, having that awareness in terms of sure, you can talk about climate change, like that needs to be talked about, but can you deliver it as well? Can you really put it out in an appealing way where it can make a difference? So those are things you have to keep in mind. There's so many things, like, again, menstruation is something I'd love to talk about, but people aren't ready to hear that from an 18-year-old boy. So again, like, what can you deliver? What can you so and so? And then building a script. What are the punchlines going to be like? Do you have something good to start with? Do you have material to show, like videos maybe? So keeping all of those in mind, and then, creative.
And even like say writing the script part, like how does that build out for you? So do you just write it? Do you have the teams who write it and then you proofread it? How does that collaboration work?
First 6-7 videos, I probably wrote them. I think first 6-7 videos. So it was so we had like a team, yeah, but I would have a big say in the first 6-7 videos. So we had 4 people at the start, then it was 2 people, then it was 5-6 people. But back then it was like 2 or 3 people writing the script. Now it's become a much more official thing, like we're more of a bigger thing now, I guess. We have 2 video script writing teams. I always try to keep my head in, because I shouldn't put out something which I have, like, I don't understand, I guess. So I I'm always there. But definitely, like the last few videos, I wouldn't have as much of a say in it. I kind of proofread over everything we do now. But massive props to them because they're doing really, really well. Because this stuff takes experience and time to understand, like, what will the audience like. And they're doing it so well. I'm, like, so proud of my video scripting teams because they write amazing.
And what about the video edits and sound design and all that kind of stuff?
So, right. We have 5 teams, 2 for scripting, 1 for marketing, and 1 for graphic designing and editing. So they would take care of that. And they're doing amazing as well. I'm super proud of them.
And in the end, do you just basically approve everything on top?
Yeah, so that's basically like my role. I'm an administrator and an official pain in the ass. I instruct, I proofread, I approve of things, but yeah, just being very critical. Like, honestly, I don't think I ever say, oh, like, this is perfect. Like, I always say, no, you can improve, you can improve. So just, yeah, being an official pain in the ass, like, do it, like, we need it by then. And getting them to hit deadlines, so and so.
Anyone in particular you look up to in the space?
Hassan Minhaj, for sure. Like, that guy, he sends important messages, by the way, but, like, it's so funny. It's such a comical approach, and we tried that for our last video. India is our sugar daddy. Like, we're trying to say that India intervenes into our industry so much, and we start celebrating them instead of our local people. So, yeah, definitely him.
Any other big influences?
My dad, definitely.
Locally in Bangladesh?
Locally in Bangladesh, ooh. Ayman Sadiq, I love his persona. Damn, like, that guy has given his life for this.
He's really charismatic as well.
Yes, like, he's always smiling, so he's so positive. Like, that's what you want on the internet to a very large extent. So, definitely him.
Cool.
I have a question for you, though, because at my age, I'm 18 now. I'm like, okay, can I really make a career out of this? This is what you do almost, like social media. So, do you think it's a potential future for me or for other creators out there? Financially, though, because I've made $0 from the project itself, do you think people can financially monetize these projects and make a living out of it?
The thing is, my thoughts in the future, like 4 or 5 years down the line, as things, get more and more repetitive, like jobs and things like that, like all the stuff that's repeatable will be replaced by, robots and AI and stuff like that, right? The only thing that will sustain, I feel, are, characters and creators and people who can present themselves online. And so I think the value of creators is actually going to go up in the future, even though the market's going to be saturated. Now, saturation is no reason why you shouldn't be in that market, especially if that's the skill set you have. So I think, people should actually start doing this stuff a lot more. But I wouldn't recommend leaving everything else on the side and then just focusing on creating stuff, because it's not going to pay you by the hour as any other job would. So if you need to feed yourself, if you need to pay your bills, you still got to maintain something on the side, whilst you got to love this stuff to be able to do it on the side. I don't think it's a quick money-making scheme at all. And that's one thing I've learned over the last 10 years of making content, is that you're not, if you're in it for the money only,
wrong place.
But if you keep doing it enough, if you play your cards right, if you're a little bit lucky here and there, it can really, really work out well for you. I mean, some of the people you've mentioned already, in this podcast, they are, like, Ahmad's killing it right now, right? Even though he's not a content creator to start with, he's an entrepreneur, because he runs his own online school and things like that. But I'm sure he'll have enough income as a creator as well to at least get by.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I want to add, I think it just adds to what you said. Something people don't know about me is that I'm studying pre-law. So I'm doing pre-law. I'm doing a double degree for uni. I'm working about 30 hours a week in a warehouse. And then people ask me, how do I have time for content? And this is something you said. You have to love it. You have to love it with everything. So it has to be to the point where I work from 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. So that's almost 8 hours of intensive labor. Is that 10 hours of intensive labor? And then I'm back. And I'm like, I need to have that energy instead of watching a TV show. Go on a call, talk to your team, work on a video.
Yeah, and that's literally the life of so many creators that I know.
Exactly.
It's instead of, playing online games or doing something else, watching a movie. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. but you gotta love making stuff as much as you love watching a movie. Otherwise, because you're replacing that downtime with something that you enjoy. And if
Exactly.
you don't enjoy creating content, there's no way you can sustain. And burnout is very real in this space. Do you get burned out?
Every month, at least twice every month.
But I think there's a way around it.
Really?
Yeah.
What are your ways of treating burnout?
It's literally stepping down. Like it's literally slowing down. Like you have to, because otherwise you won't be able to sustain. I know that social media demands
active presence
every day, everything, and lucky you've got a team who's doing a lot of your stuff. Most people don't have that, so
True.
I would say delegate as much as you can, so that and because you've got a wider team, delegate wider stuff, whilst so that they don't feel pressured that they are getting burned out either. First of all, make sure that your team is happy, because if your team's not happy, you won't be happy. It's like the number one thing.
Facts. Yeah.
So make sure that they're not getting burned out, and then once you've divided and delegated your task, make sure you've got time that actually isn't work, school, or content. Like you need to have time that isn't work, school, or content. Otherwise, you're if it's 30 minutes a day that you can take out, or if it's, I don't know, an hour at the end of the week or something, but you have to have some time to yourself that's not connected to any sort of form of productivity, or
I've always kept up with like social commitments. I always hang out with my friends every few days, but that's the rest of my spare time. Because if I don't keep up socially, like I'm probably gone. But in terms of like being a couch potato, which I was before, like playing FIFA, watching TV shows, none of that. I just don't have time for it.
It's good in some ways. I've done that for a long time, where I didn't I haven't done that for a long time. But I'm getting to a point now where it's like, it's important to have some of that back into my life. So that's now I play like Warzone twice a week with my friends. Otherwise, I'm and it helps. Honestly, it does, because these are my school friends. We go way back. This is literally the only form of it's the only form of communication. It's almost like playing with them back in school, like when we used to just do stuff and hang around, and you get those banter and stuff like that. I think that's just as important as for your mental well-being as anything else. So it's important that you hang out with friends and stuff, but make sure it's part of your routine.
That's so cool though, but like honestly, like for me, I can't afford to take a break.
I know exactly how you feel, because I feel guilty when I do that. I feel like I'm not doing enough.
No, but there's like feeling guilty. But for me, it's like I can't run away from my course. I can't run away from my work, which I have done before, but I went back into it because I felt guilty.
Yeah.
But in terms of this content, if I run away, there's a team waiting for me. There are people waiting for me. This is like a responsibility, and like with like great privilege comes like great responsibility. I've signed up for this, and now if I leave, it's kind of gone. Like,
no,
I'm
like
committed.
I'm not saying like don't leave, but more like it's all. I'm sure your dad will be able to testify that he, or any corporate or any entrepreneur or anyone who leads or builds or creates with teams, they usually have like a routine or calendarized items, or making sure that they have enough time and space for this, and then enough time and space for that. So I would say they work backwards. Like have 30 minutes. That's like, for example, like for example, if you had to go to a dentist, right? Would you go tell your dentist, no, I have to talk to my team right now. I can't do my 30 minute of, I don't know, like scaling in my teeth or whatever. You won't be able to do that, because that's important for your hygiene, right? Or say, God forbid, if you break a bone and if you go to the hospital, you won't be like, I have to do it, right? So essentially that takes priority, right?
Yeah.
So when you prioritize 30 minutes of break every day and then build everything around it,
That's nice.
I think so one thing I learned quite recently as well with my calendar, do you use Google Calendar?
I tried, but then I just.
Did you use any calendar, or?
I was using Google Calendar for a bit, but then I stopped completely.
So you don't use any calendar right now?
I don't use any calendar,
okay.
no.
Like number one skill, like pick up using calendar. Trust me, it's gonna save your life. So one thing on Google Calendar you can do is like you can add like different versions of like calendars, and you can like uncheck and check to see altogether or none at all. So what I've got as a calendar setting is that I've got an ideal week. So I've set up like an ideal week for myself that, okay, like, ideally this week is going to be sleep 6 hours, workout 1 hour, go to, do work for like 5 hours. And it's like I've got all these like little slots that's built out for the week. But that's my ideal week, right? So when somebody calls for, hey, do you want to do a meeting or do you want to go play? I'll be like, yep, but it's only in these slots that I can potentially do.
Yeah.
And what that works is it works like an anchor for me to hold me to this ideal week. So
nice.
and within that ideal week, I've built like family time, I've built like downtime, I've built like meeting times, right? It's not always perfect, but what that does for me is that it makes me feel like I'm in control. It makes me feel like I've got downtime scheduled, so I don't feel burnt out. Like if it's almost like a psychological trick. Like even if I'm like working like 23 hours a day or something, I'll feel like 1 hour I'll be able to at least have an hour of Warzone on Thursday night with my friends. You know what I mean?
I'm definitely gonna try that.
Give it a shot. Like Google
Definitely
Calendar, man. It's and plus, especially as you start growing into getting out of university and growing into more and more real world jobs and appointments and stuff like that. That's the one thing that's gonna. I mean, you saw the latest Noam Chomsky interview, right?
Oh yes,
that dude needed that calendar. That dude needed that calendar.
He needed more than the calendar. God, like secondhand embarrassment.
It was the worst. It was the worst. I feel bad for the guy though. Like he was genuinely curious, and I went to his profile and like he does this stuff on like he's a journalist, like day-to-day journalist, but I think this was out of his league. This was a bit out of his league. Anyway, moving on. We're almost towards the end of the end of the podcast, but what are your, I guess, goals for the next 5 years or so?
I never think very long term. I feel like that's what would kill your creativity and like working on the fly. Like I really acknowledge that and I really try and embrace that more and more. So I don't think too long term, but one thing which has been in my head a lot recently is I need to go back. I need to go back to Bangladesh. Like it's not, not as in like a long term thing because I'd still be studying here, but I need to go back for like 6-7 months. You know how you can do like exchange programs? You can also do uni online. I need to go back 6-7 months.
And I think that's when you can truly make a difference.
Yes.
Videos can only take you so far. Raising charity, I think, is only as much as you can go. But to truly make a difference, I think there's only one or two ways. It's either getting into politics or actually being there on the ground, literally helping the people. Like that's the only two effective way that I know.
I think politics is an institutional difference, but to say that what I'm doing currently, like influencing people, is not making a difference, I would strongly disagree with that.
When I say politics, I would say policies that actually impact people, right? What you can do with your videos is actually
influence people to do better, like changing the next generation, and I find that very important.
The only thing, though, with, I guess, social media stuff is that it's almost like, say, when you drive, like, do you drive?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So when you drive, you see billboards, right? Like on the side of the stuff.
I see what you mean.
So it's like somebody who's putting up that billboard, they're saying something, right? But they don't know how many people are looking at these billboards and taking an action to buy that product. I think it's the same thing with social media content, right? We can only go as much as telling people what to do. There's some indication for us that says, okay, like some people are listening via shares and likes and views, but how many of those people are actually taking action that changes their day-to-day impact on the like when I'm saying impact, I mean actual impact that makes a difference in someone's life, right? So I think what you're doing is not unimportant. I think it's definitely important to have an overarching kind of push, because if you keep doing it enough, you'd be able to change the mindset of, I don't know, like a 12-year-old who's following you for the last 5 months, right? If they keep watching you, they will buy into your mentality. It's the same way as Logan Paul or someone else has been following you.
Exactly.
At the same time, your purpose to me seems much greater than that, than just someone following you. And I think the only way to make that difference, from at least my perspective, is for you to be in Bangladesh. So I'm glad that you want to go there. And yeah, I think the two ways that actually helps people directly are policies that directly impact people, and that doesn't have to be being involved in politics, but being involved in ways where you can influence those policies.
Yes, that's a big one. Like, it doesn't mean that I have to enter politics directly.
No,
I
that's
can
absolutely.
be like
Yeah.
influencing and getting people to, like, whether it be sign petitions or just
Yeah.
like, you know, create that effect where
Or having, like,
somebody's
you know,
pushed to
networks
it.
of people
Yes.
who you know well enough to be able to, you know, make those changes happen, or actually being on the ground, like literally, you know, with the people, serving
Exactly.
them.
Taking my content to the next level is fully interdependent on me actually being there. We have so many video ideas which we can't deliver from here. Like, we're saving it. Like, this exciting stuff coming on, hopefully. So that's like, you know, once I'm there, like, you haven't even seen the best of it yet. That's what I feel.
That's
everyone.
awesome. That's awesome.
So-
What do you think is the future of social media content for Bangladesh?
Bangladesh, very exciting because it changes so much. I feel like in terms of Bangladesh, it's whether people are going to stick to it or not. There were some amazing creators before. Did they stick to it? There are some amazing creators now. Did they stick to it? Will I be doing this a year on from now? That's going to be a big question. Like, you know, things like that. So if people stick to it, definitely heaps of potential. So I think that's the main thing, commitment. Will creators stick to what they're doing?
One thing I actually didn't ask you was, like, do you have creative ruts and blocks, like where you go like, oh, I can't think of a creative idea for my stuff, or do you have enough on the pipeline to, I can't wait to do them?
I've been kind of like embracing my inner creative self. Like, I've become, personally, I feel like I've matured in terms of creativity as well. So even in my free time, I end up writing songs and like poems,
that's
which
awesome.
I've never done in my life. It's like extremely weird, but like things like that. So in terms of creativity, I feel like I'm at my fullest. And if I'm not at my best, like, my team is always there. We have some of the most creative teenagers out there, like amazing people from different backgrounds. So we can always bounce off ideas and we always have a good product. So that's what, like, you know, keeps me confident at the end of the day. Even if I have a creative rut, there will be someone on my team who's going to step up their game and get the game and like get the product out.
Awesome. Finally, for someone who wants to walk your path in creating video content and through making a difference as well, what are 3 actionable steps that you'd tell at least a younger self, or you know, someone who's younger listening to and wanting to create stuff like you?
Number 1, start. There's nothing stopping you. Social media, again, you don't need a degree to get on there. Like, some of the people on social media, they're so much better at doing certain things than people with degrees even. So that's one. Number 2 is you should have a supportive circle around you. That's just my opinion. Could be 1 friend, could be 2 friends, could be no friends, could just be like your parents. Surround yourself with a very supportive bunch of people who will have your back. Even if no one has your back, they would always support you. That's extremely important going into such big things. Third one is being very ambitious. Back yourself. Believe that you can really make a difference. Like, there's nobody in this world who can convince me that I'm not trying to make a difference, at least. So that's very important. Like, know what you're doing it for. If it's to entertain, believe in that. That my job is to make people laugh and make the days better. That sounds very nice. So believe in that. Be very ambitious. Like, you know, reach the skies. Like, you know, like, the world is yours, kind of thing.
Brilliant. Well, Sameer, thanks for coming on. It was a pleasure. We'll do this again hopefully sometime, but
Sure.
For now, what should I call you? SameerScane?
Skane, sure.
Skane?
Sugarcane, let's go.
Sugarcane. I think I'm gonna stay calling that. All right. Thanks, man.